Look, welcome back. Ooh, it never really feels like I'm gone for two days, but when I tell you, it's amazing. Believe it or not. Um, because I always try to get as much done as I can. And so, what I ended up doing, however, um, I went ahead and PDF'd all the remaining chapters for the positive attitude of 2020, the power of your attitude, goodness gracious. Um, I went ahead and PDF'd the remaining chapters. I had 4 and 5 already PDF'd. So technically I only had 5 through 14, 15, give or take. So that took me till about 3 a.m. Friday night. And then yesterday, Saturday, I had to retwist my son's locks. So we always be booked and busy for sure. Um, but I just wanted to make sure that I utilized my time wisely. So that way, as I'm reading the book, I can just read. Um, okay, so Kevin didn't drop anything this week from Just Stop Lounge. So, um, instead of scrolling through my algorithm, I figured we should um, stick to, stick to the program. Just True Crime Sunday. So since Kevin didn't drop, we'll start with Mike from that chapter. We'll swing over to, let me pull him up real quick so that way I can just, hold on, let me tap in and give myself a thumbs up. Hi, hi, oh my God. Natasha Lakasari, hello. Who got their message retracted? Oh, okay. Whatever. Hi. Thank you for the thumbs up. Look, I just said, I'm like, let me tap in and give myself a thumb up because I do come up on the chat. This is Natasha Cassidy. Hello. Tap in. Tap in. Um, it's True Crime Sunday, so I can't be over there with that DIY. Thank you for the subscription. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Baron went live today? He did, of course. Lesson learned while he was in Phoenix. Of course he went live. I don't know how to fit Baron into the schedule. I'm giving Candace the rest of the summer off. She clickbaited me with that Vladimir Putin thumbnail, and I am still in my feelings. Child, she lucky I swing back over there for the end of the year. Coffee house crime, coffee house. Come on. So in my feelings about that. Still, let me see. Um, Child, I hadn't been over here in such a minute. Okay, let me pull this one up. And then just for shits and giggles, uh, he should be. I had to check. Don't I had to check because I'm like, yeah, this ain't my main channel. Let me see. Hold on, because I ain't been over here in a minute, so I got to scroll through Giles. I had to scroll through. Go to his channel. He wasn't subscribed onto this channel. He was subscribed onto my main channel. This channel. Bingus. Chingus. Hello, hello, hello. Hold on, give me a second. Let me see what's going on over here. Go to the videos, Giles. He be having a lot going on. He be vlogging and stuff. Um, I don't even know what season we're on right now. I think he was just throwing something together for this season. Let me see. I'm gonna come back. Ooh, goodness, he be having so much going on over there. I ain't been there over there in a minute. Fooling with Giles. All right, we are like I said, Kevin didn't drop, so we're on like. Let me fix the screen a little bit. And then I bought some snack because I'm not trying to chew and smack in your ear, but just in case that Koa wakes up, he's gonna want some breast milk, and that snack hit different. Um, trying to breast milk on an empty stomach. So I do have some snack here. It's a Listen, I got some tortilla chips. They Tostitos. They're not just drop somebody. They're not on the border. These are Tostitos rounds. They didn't have the lightly salted, so you have to do what you got to do. I got some skinny pop at the bottom. Regular. Yeah, regular. She's all, I got some pistachios. I believe that's wonderful, lightly salted. And then all the way at the bottom, there is some Raisin Bran Crunch. Who is Raisin Bran Crunch? Is that Kellogg's? I believe it is. Oh my God, this guy. I hear him. See what I mean? Talk about regularly scheduled programming. Let me see what he want. He probably didn't feed on himself. This guy. Okay. 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 I heard him and then it faded. It wasn't like consistent. So he probably peed and then moved out of that spot. Okay. I think we're good to go. Like, I heard him and then I did. Like I said, he probably peed and moved out the spot. He learned that. I'm so glad. I'm so proud of him because I'm like, you know, come on, little pissy. He's turning one June 2nd. Madison and Madeline is turning 9 this Saturday. And Seth just turned 5 a week and a half ago. Them summer birthdays, Lord, just they hit different on the finances, especially when your washing machine just went out. Oh my. And the air conditioner went out Friday. But you know what? This isn't about me. This is true crime. It's true crime. This is true crime. I hit up my landlord. I'm like, excuse me, can we please get somebody from the HVAC department to come and check out and see? Maybe I need a little bit more refrigerant or something. I don't know. It just, how like don't get me started. Let me just see what Mike got going on. Let me eat my snack. Oh, uh-uh. Hold on, let's this ankle. 'Cause or maybe that's just over here. What is okay, this is serious now. Hold on just a second. Look at see why. Look, I'm like, it's serious. You just starting here. Goodness. Trying to be great. Well, what did he just say?
It was a Wednesday, August 30th, 2023, that officers were called to a parking lot in downtown Atlanta, Georgia. A parking lot employee had been cleaning up the place this morning, the trash, the stairwells, when he came across a strong stench. At first, giving it a good old sniff, he thought it was like a dead rat or something in the parking lot. But following his nose, it led to the stairwell on level 1A. Hidden underneath the stairwell was a covered figure. From the smell, they'd been there a fair bit. It appears to be a white female, 48, border coming from a location. Looked like she was she's completely naked, tucked up under the stairway. Hey, you and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, a YouTuber went on a night out that ended up turning into a nightmare. It ended in a stairwell, a hunt for CCTV, and an animal shelter. So don't forget to subscribe to see 2 new true crime videos every week. Now, let's give it a good.
That was a hell of an intro.
Options to that parking lot called Underground, though it is fairly overground. And this is in downtown Chester Brown ATL. This was on MLK Junior Drive,
Mm.
east across from Old County Courthouse.
Right.
Some attendant that morning, he smelled something rough. The nose knows that ain't good. So when the police officer pulls into that parking lot to see what's up after getting the
Look at Mike and his
911
haircut.
he wasn't going anywhere near that again. Looking under the stairwell on that level, deep under the stairwell, like properly scrunched up, were the remains of someone. It looked like a female. The remains were small, appeared naked, though scrunched up, and the face was covered by a newspaper. Okay, yeah, it was covered up, right? Oh, like female or male to you? Like small. Yeah, it's a dead body there up on the stairwell. So I talked to the security and walked the stairwell last night.
Mm.
Nah, it's a smell coming from there. So uh,
Mm.
I'm saying though, this person is dead, been dead for a while. So
Mm.
would have seen her up under the stairwell.
Mm. Mm.
Been there a couple of days, and this is though security had been said they saw nor smelt a thing. So what?
There
What I have to say to that is you might want to invest in better security, pal,
Mm.
because they did in their hearts come true here. There is no way anybody walking in here would not have noticed that. They wouldn't have seen
Right.
it was properly scrunched up and hidden. Unless they were stroke victims, that smell was impossible to ignore. Being able to build in
I mean, unless she got dumped there. I don't know.
that's what I'm saying. We have people walking in the stairwell all hours.
Look, give him the phone back because we ain't finna keep saying the same thing over and over and over, sir. Right.
More officers arrived to secure the scene, and the case began, starting with identifying who the shit this was and what happened to it. Yes, he's under the stairwell. Here's the way your files was just the way it's all the way up on people's.
Mm.
Right. First, it seemed like maybe a homeless person, maybe it had been an overdose. Just a very strange place. And the fact that the body was naked didn't point to that, but whatever it was horrifying. Now, one thing from the get go that could lead the police towards some sort of identification was that on the right wrist was a wristband. Well, I got the spot. Sometimes someone gets a souvenir. Like an event band that they give you at concerts so you can go in and out as you please. The one on the victim's wrist, though, clearly had the name Alley Cat Music Club. The Alley Cat Music Club was, well, I'll hazard a guess you could figure that one out for yourself. It was mostly house and techno, and it was literally part of the same complex. There's Alley Cat, there's Masquerade, another live music venue, which also is supposedly haunted by headless soldiers, and staff refuse to go into certain parts of the building at night. A haunted like gig venue is part of these buildings and parking lot, but turns out there was something way more horrifying than any ghost stories just across the alley. So the victim had been in the Alley Cat, at least they could work their way backwards. She was found on Wednesday morning. The club last had an event on the previous Saturday, the 26th. On that Saturday, a DJ and Grammy winner named Victor Calderon had played. So likely the victim had gone to that gig. Yeah, this past Saturday, they got it missed around, so this past Saturday. What was it? What kind of it was it? Victor Calderon and give me my phone and see. Trying to see if they got any map posts and then people posted like, where's my phone? Yeah, that's the other thing. Maybe she had come in here, parked her car here, going back after the gig. I mean, she must have been to the gig if she had the wristband. Maybe going back there, something had happened, or she had just been taken here, searching for anyone who had been in attendance but hadn't made it home in those 4 days since. That eventually led police to a name, Mitchell Dang. Perfectly normal person too. Drug there going. That's Panda. I think they still look like the body type. I know. But they're giving some
Uh-oh.
came down here, up there, come on. They were smart. They would have said that off front. This was quite simply a case of Mitchell wanting to go out and party and dance away in the city, and then ending up murdered instead.
Mm.
Mitchell Dang was 25 years of age, from Norcross, an Atlanta suburb, growing up in a Vietnamese family. Her parents had come to the States right after the Vietnam War, and Mitchell was the middle of three girls, Mary, Mitchell, and Maggie.
Mm. Yeah, I'm going crazy. Mm.
Berkmar High School. After graduation, Mitchell worked in various restaurants, paid hospitality, and these days was really enjoying working as a lash technician in a boutique. But one thing she really loved, vlogging. She posted fairly frequently on her channel, self-titled. Hey guys, my name is Mitchell Ding, and in today's video, we're going to be transforming my hair from long to short, just because I really want to see how I would look with short hair, and just kind of like
Yeah.
this. Yeah, I'm gonna see what I can look up because I have yet to look anything up. She made vlogs about the vacays, babies. Hi guys. So I kind of want to like vlog. I don't know, I want to vlog because I don't know. I'm gonna try, but we're gonna see. And yeah, the get ready with me's. the food, the shopping. And you know what? Sometimes just shoot the shit.
Shooting the shit.
Personality is pretty decent, even more kind.
And she's so pretty. Oh my god. She's like so pretty. Is that Chloe? It's giving body. Mm. Girl, let me get out of the way. I'm talking about look. Child, I had put a pistachio down and looked up, but I was like, is that Chloe? Ooh, it's giving body. God, dog, Chloe so doggone gorgeous. Oh my god, it just don't make no sense. Make it out of Mitchell way. Okay.
Video was posted August 28th, 2023, the day of the concert, hours before she was murdered.
What you was supposed to be wearing.
Become critical in the investigation.
Right, because we don't she is so pretty. I don't know, guys, she's so pretty.
Itself, and she wasn't afraid
700 friends on my Facebook.
that Saturday night. The worry didn't begin immediately. That Saturday, the night of the concert, it has been a regular ass day for Mitchell. The Dang family all had dinner together. Then after dinner, Mitchell asked her mom if it was okay if she went into the city to go dance away and party with some friends, which she did. When she didn't return home that night, her parents just assumed she's 25 years of age. She's probably crashing with some friends. It was a Sunday. She'll show up when she shows up.
Ooh.
But then on the Monday, that's when the Dang family really started to worry about
Can't answer no phone.
is going to knock on the door.
What?
Yeah, that's right, Judge.
Too many days.
Says if it takes more police presence out here, more security, they don't want to see any more loss of life. Mitchell's body was found in that garage right there where tourists and patrons park. He was very excited about what would become her last night out.
Really hard to wrap your mind around
Angelique.
what in downtown Atlanta and somehow ends up killed. Her body was found 4 days later in this parking deck. However, it happened. So you don't really know. We don't know. We don't know how it happened. That she went to the music event and on her way back to her car, she was attacked.
Mitchell had been stripped, sexually assaulted.
Oh.
The cause of death appears to be strangulation. Her phone, wallet, and her car keys. Mitchell had driven into the city that night. She was planning on getting the subway train home. But she hadn't parked in the parking lot where her body was found. So how the shit did she even get in here? Who took her here? CCTV from that parking lot all the way back to the Alley Cat Music Club would give the investigators a pretty good idea of how Mitchell got here.
Is he gonna be black? You are allowed to be a little slightly racist when it comes to true crime. I'm just throw that out there. I didn't even look at the thumbnail. Let me look at the thumbnail. He always give it away in the thumbnail. I'm gonna look at the thumbnail. I'm trying to figure out, is he gonna be black? She's so damn pretty.
Mitchell had gotten separated from her friends and
Wow.
seen stumbling along the sidewalk, probably like she had maybe a few too many, at the concert.
It's giving black.
You do. Then a random guy, a stranger, came up to her offering her assistance.
Stick with the click.
She told the guy to F off in those many words, actually. And she started walking away. But this guy would not leave her alone. They could clearly see on the CCTV he wouldn't stop. He kept following her, talking to her, trying to talk to her while she was just marching off. Eventually, she relented. Like a freaking shark smelling blood in the water, this guy saw a vulnerable woman alone late at night after having a few too many beers, and he was not going to leave her alone. She wasn't too sure where she had left her car, and at that
Where is your Uber? Like, you could have got an Uber.
He offered to walk her to it, like he knew where
Like he fucking knew what
subway, but he then turned around and started walking toward the car park. And it was
told you he was black. I called it.
this time he took her keys and phone also, the only things she had to get away. They were last seen entering the stairwell of the parking lot, and Mitchell wasn't again.
Who
20
is
minutes
this?
reappeared on CCTV.
Told you he was black. Who is this?
Authorities were able to track him. They tracked him as he used the MARTA, the Atlanta subway. They tracked him as he used Mitchell Dang's credit card to buy gas, and as he dumped
Where he driving?
on and for clothing. This eventually led them to 24-year-old Jakevius Arnold.
24? Jakevius.
Now, to get confirmation that this fellow was,
Actually, the Jakevius. I
a
wasn't even looking at the description. He had the name in there, Jakevius. It's giving black for sure.
all the way around town. They had got a pretty dang clear look at his face. They ended up showing some images from the CCTV to his grandmother, Linda Arnold. Recognized him. She said, "Yep, that's my grandson. I shit you not. He has the same haircut, same build, walks just like him." Now, Jakevius had run-ins with the police before. In November 2016, he was arrested for vandalism. Then 3 months later, he was arrested while in high school for baiting 7 shades of shite out of another student and stealing their phone. Both times he was released on bond, so that was it. And he
Who's
wasn't on those 2 times up until the time of the story, 2023. So like 6 years. Actually, I should say he wasn't caught being in trouble.
Uh-oh. Where are we at? Why are we at the animal hospital?
I got you. I'm with you.
Uh-oh. Oh, 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 oh. Change. Oh, uh-oh. Oh, this is massive. Oh, oh, oh.
Behind your back. Do you understand me? Yeah.
Put the taser up.
It was on September 22nd, almost 1 month after that night at the Alley Cat, that Jakevius Arnold was arrested. He was taken in a place called Chamblee, just outside of Atlanta, arrested by the Chamblee police. Jakevius had been working at DeKalb County Animal Services. His girlfriend, she also worked there. He'd been assigned to this place about 2 months now through a temp agency. Jakevius pretty much broke down after his arrest. He was charged with robbery, kidnapping, and felony murder. He would end up being charged with a lot more. Wish me luck, brother.
Oh,
So just don't get me too far. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
what kind of remorse is this? You know what? Now that I think about it, because you really can't sleep, eat, or concentrate. You know, it'd be kind of nagging at the back of your head and stuff like that. You're right. You're right. Trying to get it over with. Mhm. Mhm. And at work too, they made sure they got him. Mhm. All the embarrassment.
I'm a horrible person.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm a horrible.
Mm.
You didn't go that far. No, no, no.
Mhm.
You say, bro. You went through the best, bro. We can show you how you would look.
He's just overdoing it with all that brother stuff. It's irking me. It's really irking, brother. Brother. Shut your ass up.
When he was taken in, Jakivius stated, like, straight up, did not deny what he'd done. That he had murdered a Mitchell and was like, yep, shit, you got. What he said, though, was that he was trying to be, what you call them? One of those, good Samaritans. Hey, I'm a good guy. You'll always trust the guy with glasses, won't you? And trying to, drunk, intoxicated woman, make sure she got home safe. But as they entered that stairwell, he would say, Mitchell she turned around and began, Kitty got claws. She began scratching the ever living shit out of him. So what he said happened next was he choked her out, dragged her down, began sexually assaulting her. She woke up. He then strangled her till she died and began sexually assaulting her body. Yep. Got some real good Samaritan.
You know that necrophilia child is very popular in these streets. These true crime streets.
Right there. He then removed her clothing for DNA and evidence as he watched some true crime TV shows, stuffed her tiny frame under the stairwell, and later dumped her clothing and her phone. And then get a load of this freaking devious to the
Not Devious Jakevious.
hey, you want to get a load of some shit? This ain't the first time I've been doing this kind of thing. He had done this multiple times before to multiple vulnerable women late at night. He would say one time again, same MO.
Oh, so we got ourselves a little serial killer, huh? Okay. That's what he meant. He a little serial killer.
Dragged a woman, a vulnerable, intoxicated woman, dragged her into the bushes. He would say he left her breathing, or thought he did. Another time he tried it with another woman late at night, but she managed to fight him off. She had mace, so maybe carrying mace is not the worst. It's actually quite a good idea. Were there more victims? Definitely. Were there more murder victims? Possibly. He would say that first victim, who he said he left breathing, actually he's kind of like not sure. In fact, she may have had a death rattle when he left her, because he was pretty darn able to describe Mitchell Dang's death rattle.
Did he say that he'd ever done anything like this before? Yeah. Well, he admitted to 2 other sexual assaults, also possible homicide in a different jurisdiction. The same mode of operation. He middle of the night, he approached the either vulnerable alone female, asked her for help, pestered them. He drug them in a wood line, stripped her of her clothing, choked her until she was semi-breathing. He did not have sex with this young lady because he said that she smelled.
Try to do it different with that cat thing.
The individuals, however, in those other cases, they remain unidentified. They've been passed on to, the county police where those incidents happened, and police have said they're investigating them, but they find more. They're gonna find. They will. But I'm just saying one thing. What do you have? Please.
No. No.
You calling down how you gotta do some stuff up here.
Yeah.
So do you have a lock?
No. Shut the
What's your?
no.
Um,
No.
Sorry.
Shut the all crocodile tears is finna blow me. Now you want to talk to your girlfriend and all that. Man, get out of here.
Face charges of murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, aggravated sexual battery, necrophilia, robbery card theft, and kidnapping. However,
Did I not tell you about that necrophilia? He different. He different. However, what?
all this
Plea.
while he would plead guilty to those charges. He had done some horrifying things, but at least he spared the family that. In March 2026, he was sentenced to life in prison by the Fulton County Court, where he remains to this day. That is the
Mitchell. No, I just said that. Shut up.
He was begging for forgiveness. You know, forgiveness is like an interesting thing. It's like forgiveness is about you. It's kind of a selfish act, really. It's about you feeling good for the horrible thing that you've done because it clears your conscience of the acts. You know, it's like, what about the people you did it to? Though? You ever think
That's
about
what I'm saying. I'm like, Mitchell.
true remorse? You would not ask for forgiveness because you
Right.
know you don't deserve it for what he did. But of course, that's ultimately up to those left behind, those left with the loss of the amazing person that was Mitchell Dang. And Jakevius will have to spend the rest of his days remembering what he did. So yeah, walking home, you know, alone late at night, just watch your back because there's sharks everywhere. Sharks who, as you see in this case, will usually turn into pumpkins when they're caught.
Why you want to stand with the friends? Like, why you ain't get you no Uber? I don't know. Like, I'm all over the place. I'm so heartbroken. Mitchell. We're gonna have to go move it along, move it along. Thank you, Mark, for your service. And so we might as well go ahead and wrap it up, wrap it up. We're on to
Miss Adrian.
what's up, Adrian?
On January the 2007, a young couple named Shannon Christian and Christopher Newsom were supposed to meet friends for dinner and then a party.
Who's that?
However, they would never actually arrive. By the next morning, their family were calling, searching, and slowly beginning to realize that something terrible must have happened. Because both of them could not be reached, and they seemed to abandon their plans and work altogether. And soon enough, several very disturbing clues would emerge. And what started as a dual disappearance would soon turn into one of the most dark stories that I have ever come across. Before we begin, welcome
Hi, Nero.
to House Crime, folks. The channel is run by this guy and 3 other humans. If you haven't subscribed yet, we post once or twice a week here, usually true crime or dark stories, so we'd greatly appreciate it. And if you don't, you're gonna have to speak to this one. That's his entire week's worth of work done, by the way. All he has to do is be held and stand in front of a camera. Me, who actually has to research these stories, complaining about it. Anyway, folks, with all that out the way, please grab yourself a coffee and let's get ready for the deep dive today. This is the case of Shannon Christian and Christopher Newsom. The date was January the 6th, 2007, and today we're in Knoxville, Tennessee. A couple named Newsom had ordinary plans that evening. With initial plans to go out for dinner together, they then intended to meet friends at a birthday party. But the strange thing is that, despite promising they would be there, neither of them ever showed up. Now, at first, no one worried because couples can always run or change plans at the last minute. But Shannon and Chris were not the kind of people to just vanish and leave everyone guessing. Especially not Shannon, who was not only expected to that night, but also had work the next morning. What was odd is that both of their phones seemed to be turned off too. Now, earlier that day, Shannon had already visited her best friend Kara at her apartment, which can be found at the Washington Ridge complex. She parked her vehicle, notably a Toyota 4Runner, outside of the apartment, ready with Kara, and then waiting for Chris, who had spent most of his day golfing, before then planning to head over to meet her. It's an important detail, by the way, because when friends went looking for them later that night, they found Chris's pickup truck still sitting outside of the apartment. But as for Shannon's forerunner, well, that was gone. So, where was she? And was Chris with her? With Chris's pickup truck outside of the apartment, it meant that it was very likely that he had made it there. Of course, meaning that wherever they were likely together, at least to begin with. But somewhere between that apartment complex and the plans that they had for the rest of their evening, they seemed to just suddenly disappear. Naturally, by the following morning, that concern had now turned into panic for both of their families. Hannah's mother, Dina, went to check on her daughter, expecting to find her asleep in her bedroom. But after opening that bedroom door, she realized that the entire room was empty and untouched. This wasn't a case that she had gone home and then decided to leave early that morning, but more like she'd never actually made it back home. Trust me, mother can always tell. And when Dina received a text message from Shannon's work to confirm if she wasn't coming in for her shift that day, that is when she knew that something was seriously wrong. In response, she contacted Christopher's family, and it turns out that they too were wondering where Christopher had gone, meaning that all of a sudden, both families immediately knew that both of them were missing. Something was deeply wrong here. They just didn't know what. Both families contacted the police. However, with Christopher and Shannon now qualifying as adults, it meant that they had to wait at least 24 hours before they could officially file a missing persons report. And of course, I understand why those rules exist, but when your child is missing and every fiber of your being knows that something deeply has gone wrong, this rule isn't fair. It's unkind and cruel. So it meant, at least for now, both families were officially on their own, which is ridiculous. With this in mind, they decided to press on to try and find their children. And thankfully, they would actually have backup through friends and extended family. They began their search by checking their environment before then moving on to police stations, hospitals, and even homeless shelters. Basically, just desperately trying to find any scrap information that may give them a, but the clues would not calm anyone down. If anything, it only made things worse. But before we get into what happens next, because trust me, it gets far darker, we should first take a look at who Shannon and Christopher were. Be- Beginning with Shannon, she was 21 years old at the time and was a senior at the University of Tennessee, where she was studying sociology. She was born in Texas on April the 29th, 1985, before then moving with her family to Knoxville when she was only 12 years old. She lived with her loving parents, Dina and Gary Christian, and her older brother, Chase. And by this time, Shannon was one of those who seemed to collect friends wherever she went. She was bubbly, social, warm, and very much loved. Now, Shannon was especially close with her mother, Dina, and despite being at an age where many people are desperate to move out and get away from home, Shannon decided to choose the University of Tennessee, partly because it meant she could stay close to her family. Now, that doesn't mean that she wasn't independent, because she very much was, and worked two jobs alongside her studies to save money and even buy herself a brand new Toyota 4Runner, which, as we know, would later become one of the first major clues in this case. As for Christopher, he was a 23-year-old Knoxville native, being born on September the 21st, 1983. Growing up, he was remembered as happy, easygoing, and hands-on. He loved baseball and had a creative side, often making little handmade gifts for his family. At high school, Chris was known to be a talented baseball player, and after graduating, he followed his practical side into carpentry, studying at Pellissippi State Technical Community College, before then going on to work for B&F Construction. So, in many ways, Shannon and Chris were both at that early adult stage where life is just starting to properly open up for them. We're talking work, the friends, family, independence, and in their case, a new relationship that was only a few months old. Life was exciting, and deservedly so. By January 2007, they had been together for around 3 months at the time. It was still new and exciting, and they were only beginning to fold into each other's lives. Things like sharing plans, sharing friends, and showing up together whenever one of them was invited. And I know, a slightly strange pivot here, but actually, when you're covering a story about two young adults who have their entire lives ahead of them, including university, work, relationships, and the kind of future that they want, It does make you wonder how many people are actually watching this and thinking, what do I actually want to do with my life? Or perhaps you're not 21 anymore. Maybe you're just working full time with plenty of bills and responsibilities in front of you. But deep down, you wonder, what would it have been like if I went into that industry instead? Many people don't actually know this about me, but all the way back in the year 2008, before engineering and even university, I was actually already a YouTuber. And then, of course, came the degree, entering the corporate world and absolutely hating it, before finding myself right back where I started here on YouTube. What I'm trying to say here is that many of us don't actually know what we want to do when we're younger, or perhaps we have a dream, go for something sensible, and then actually realize that life is too short. You should follow the passion that you actually have. So, if that curiosity inside of you is
Uh-oh.
currently flickering, maybe this video's sponsor, Southern New Hampshire University, is worth your time.
Okay.
SNHU is one of the largest accredited universities within the United States and some of the most affordable online tuition rates in the nation. They offer over 200 online degree programs, and because times, you can study when and where it actually works for you. One of the degrees that really stands out for me is cybersecurity, especially with how much of our lives, money, and personal information now live online. SNA2 even offers an online BS in cybersecurity with a generative AI concentration, which feels very 2026 in the best way possible, and something that I would seriously consider. With SNA2, you can transfer up to 90 credits towards your bachelor's degree from previously earned college credits, military experience, and you may even be able to get credit for other professional certifications and experiences you've earned along the way. By the way, SNHU is also voted to be one of the country's most innovative universities by US News and World Report. So, whether you're trying to change direction, build confidence, or finally start working towards something you actually care about, it's never too late to begin. So, go to snhu.edu/. Help time to explore over 200 degree programs and find your path forward. Thank you to Southern New Hampshire University for sponsoring this video. And thank you to you folks for listening, because as you know, it's sponsors like this that help keep the channel going. And with that said, let's return to Shannon and Chris, because that night they were not heading somewhere strange, dangerous, or unknown. They were simply heading out to meet friends for dinner and then head to a party. Only, of course, that ordinary Saturday night never actually happened, because somewhere between Shannon waiting at Kara's apartment and the two of them arriving at that party, everything changed. Now, while both families were searching for these answers, another discovery had already been made. But at first, nobody actually connected it to Shannon or Chris. It was on Sunday, the 7th of January, that being the following morning, that a Norfolk Southern employee was carrying out routine work near a set of railroad tracks in Knoxville, and that's when they found something lying near the train line. At first glance, it was barely recognizable. Wrapped in a comforter, badly burned, and also left beside the tracks, he couldn't quite figure out what he was looking at. But then, all of a sudden, the worker realized that what he was actually staring at was human remains. The authorities were called to the scene immediately, and because of the terrible condition of the body, there was no quick way to identify who it was. However, soon enough, they heard the news of Shannon's and Christopher's disappearance, and that is when they realized that this body very well could belong to one of them. But in the meantime, and while completely unaware of the body found near the railroad tracks, the two families kept searching on their own. Now, surprisingly, they actually managed to extract location data from Shannon's cell phone via her provider, something that would very likely not happen anymore due to modern privacy laws. They realized that Shannon's phone had last pinged near a cell tower close to Cherry Street, which is around 6 miles from the apartment complex where she and Chris had vanished. So, with this information at hand, both families traveled to that location. After searching the surrounding area, they found her Toyota 4Runner parked on Cherry Street. However, it didn't look right. Not only had the number plates been removed from the car, but inside, the photographs, teddy bear, and iPod had all been taken away. The floors were dirty too, which very much wasn't like Shannon. And as for the seats, well, they had been pushed back so far that Shannon almost certainly wasn't the last person to drive it. Not only that, sitting in the center console was a pack of cigarettes, which is odd because neither Shannon or Chris smoked. It was kind of like her car had been stolen, wiped of its personal identity, and then abandoned only a few streets away from home. By now, the body found near the railroad tracks was beginning to be examined, and only once forensic officers took the comforter off of the body did they realize the true horror of what had happened. The victim appeared to be a man in his 20s, and he was naked with his hands bound behind his back. Clothing had been wrapped around his head and tied in place with shoelaces, and from what they could see, he had been bound, gagged, sexually assaulted, and badly beaten before his death. The injuries that killed him were
What?
3 gunshot wounds to the back, neck, and head. After that, his body had been set on fire in a feeble attempt to destroy evidence. And tragically, soon enough, the body was confirmed to belong to him.
Just needed to gather myself. We don't usually get no sexual assault on the man. Get a little different, huh? Scoot back. Let me lean up a little bit. That just, oof.
Imagine being
Don't break it.
His mother and father, Mary and Hugh, were then given the news that no parent should ever have to receive.
Exactly.
Their son had finally been found, but in the worst way possible. Not only had their son been found dead, but what had happened to him was so breaking
Right.
that they were actually advised not to view his body. Just think about that for a second here, because it's genuinely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
The condition of his body was so bad,
Right.
all they could do was hug the body bag that held so
Mm.
Christmas Shannon's recovery would not bring anywhere near as much answers as it brought terror. Because Chris had been found like this, then to Shannon. It's actually quite pain, anxiety, and panic that her family must have been feeling in that moment. They were probably thinking things like, was she still alive?
Right.
Where is she? And was there still time?
Right.
And that small possibility of finding her safe and well, no matter how slim, that the search for Shannon was now desperate, where every single minute counted. So, it's no surprise that Shannon's abandoned forerunner became extremely important to officers. But by the time they were properly processing, the victims' families had already started searching through it. Now, thankfully, they hadn't destroyed all of the evidence, because once forensic examiners went through the vehicle, they would find one very important thing. Something you could actually argue is almost comically foolish. Wedged between the seats was an envelope addressed to 2316 Chipman Street, about 2 blocks from where the vehicle was found. And even more surprisingly, what they found on the envelope was a fingerprint. After running it through AFIS, that being the automated fingerprint identification system, they realized that it belonged to a recent offender named Lamarcus Davidson. And not only was he already known to police officers, but he had also recently been released from prison for carjacking and aggravated robbery. I mean, seriously, how stupid could you be? Now, the home on 2316 Chipman Street was a small, rundown rental house in an industrial part of Knoxville. It wasn't the kind of place that Shannon or Chris would go to. When police officers knocked on the front door, nobody answered. And with Shannon still missing, and the very real possibility that she might still be alive somewhere inside, officers made the decision to kick the door down and force their way in. Once inside, they realized that the house was filthy and chaotic. It was the kind of place that immediately told them that something was wrong. And almost straight away, they began to find clues which confirmed that they were in the right place. Soon enough, officers found Chris's driver's license and his baseball cap. Next, they found Shannon's handbag and iPod, and alarmingly, they also found the shoes that she was wearing that night. However, there was no actual sign of Shannon yet. After reaching the kitchen, police officers noticed two very distinct smells. The first one being the smell of bleach, and the second was the unmistakable smell of decay. That is when they spotted a black trash can in the corner of the room. And when they opened it, police officers found a dirty white sheet stuffed over a pile of black garbage bags. And when those bags were cut open, the the search for Shannon Christian tragically came to its end. Cold inside of that trash can were her remains, discarded in that kitchen as if she meant nothing at all. And with that, the Christian family's last scrap of hope was also gone. Shannon's body told a very heartbreaking story. She was naked from the waist down, covered in blood, and had suffered bruising and deep lacerations. Her body was also drenched in bleach, which had been poured into every part of her. Investigators believe that, much like Chris's body being burned, the bleach was used in an effort to destroy forensic evidence. But thankfully, they had failed. Semen was discovered inside multiple orifices, and fingerprints were recovered on Shannon and the trash bags. What's worse is that all of her injuries seemed to be carried out while she was still alive, and upon further testing, they realized that not one, but at least 5 people had actually interacted with Shannon before her discovery, which meant that multiple people would have had the chance to save either her or Chris before their deaths. The news was devastating, revolting, heartbreaking, and infuriating all at the same time. And unfortunately, this is the kind of story that stays with you forever. But for Shannon's family, it was 1,000 times worse. In fact, local police were so shocked and overwhelmed by this case that many would actually need therapy afterwards. They were left heartbroken and absolutely furious. And with Shannon and Chris now both found, this investigation would become a full-scale manhunt for the monsters who did this. So, with that said, police had a name to begin with, and that, of course, was Lamarcus Davidson. However, they all this was not the work of just one person, and so they started digging. Quickly, another name appeared, Eric Boyd. Now, not only was Eric already known to law enforcement, but records showed that multiple calls were made between him and Lamarcus on the night that Eric and Shannon went missing. With this released, and later that day, they thankfully managed to track and stop him on the road for questioning. Funnily enough, at first, Eric would claim that he didn't even know Lamarcus, which was quite bold considering his phone records would say otherwise. But once officers told him that they knew this was false, clear why they were asking, Eric's story immediately changed. Suddenly, he didn't want to, quote, go down for somebody else's crime. Eric told the officers that Lamarcus might be hiding inside an empty house on the edge of town, a property that the two of them had allegedly robbed around the time that Shannon and Chris were taken. And so, with this information at hand, officers decided to travel down. They realized that this home had a for sale sign outside, which of course would make it the perfect spot for a wanted fugitive. However, when police forced their way inside, they didn't find it empty or even clean. They found rubbish, food packaging, and takeout bags. And sitting among the mess was Lamarcus. Lamarcus was filthy, disheveled, and obviously arrested on the spot. But before he was placed in handcuffs, there was one thing about him that really stood out, that despite a filthy mess, his shoes were crispy clean. A pair of Nike shoes that, as it turns out, did not even belong to him, but to Christopher instead. So, police now had Lamarcus in custody, and as you might expect, to begin with, he basically denied everything. But when police officers told him that they had already found his fingerprint at the crime scene, well, he decided to change his story not once or twice, but a total of 5 times. So, eventually, Lamarcus would try to arrived at the house that night with 2 strangers tied up in the back of the car. 2 strangers that he had never seen before. And according to him, because apparently he didn't want to have anything to do with this, he then decided to leave the house, not to call the police, but to smoke weed instead. Because apparently that's what innocent people do when they come across a hostage or two. By the time he came back, he claimed that Shannon was already tied up in the living room, and that he apparently told him that she didn't want to die. But Chris, he was already gone. And that is when he apparently left again, took Shannon's vehicle, wiped it down, and then abandoned it. And so, in his version of the story, he was basically being framed and essentially was the unluckiest man in Knoxville. But
That still don't explain how your semen was found inside of her, Mr. Oh, I saw her. I told you I try not to make this true crime no race thing, but I think we are 2 and up. Whew, whew.
Officers were clearly not buying it. And as often happens in stories like this, thugs eventually turn on one another. When Lamarcus eventually started blaming his half brother, Latalvis Cobbin.
One of the five. Because you know she was gang banged on. So, oh my God. I need to put your brother, half brother, step brother, whoever this is. You know it hit different when they don't look at the camera.
For long, he also added George Thomas to
Is that five?
the list. So,
We
by
got our
January,
five.
4 people had been arrested.
Four.
But
I thought
during
it was
interviews, there was one other name that kept surfacing.
four.
18-year-old woman named Vanessa Coleman. As it turns out, Vanessa would be the fifth and final piece to this puzzle. And so, with all 5 suspects now identified, could finally begin piecing together what they believed happened inside that house on Chipman Street. But piecing things together would actually prove to be difficult.
Who got that baby car seat booster seat over there in the corner? Her.
None of these people could actually be trusted, and with all of their stories
These old okay, I remember that nose. That's the half brother house. And then this is Leviticus, whoever. And then who the them old
changing
never mind.
to make sense of what was the truth and what were lies. When investigators compared the 5 different stories to the evidence available,
Shall I say 2 and up? We 6 and up. Damn.
they found that Talbot gave the most plausible account.
Here we go.
He claims that alongside Marcus and Derek, the 3 of them had gone to Washington Ridge Apartments to meet another girl. When they saw Shannon's shiny forerunner and a young couple standing outside together, their motivations all suddenly changed. According to Latalvis, he and Lamar the pair at gunpoint. They then surrounded Shannon and Chris, bound their hands behind their back, and then forced them into the vehicle before then driving them to the house on Chipman Street.
What did they just say that they had went over there to do anyway? Like they already had a reason for going over there. Then they talking about when they saw them. It was the car. Take the car. What you taking them for? What did they like? I don't understand. I'm so confused. And I'm trying to like understand where did this all go wrong? Y'all went across town. Did he say they was going to meet somebody? What? It's gonna piss me off. Let me scroll back. Okay, go ahead.
When investigators compared the 5 different stories to evidence available, they found that Talbot gave the most plausible account.
Okay.
He claims that, alongside Marcus and Derek, the 3 of them had gone to Washington Ridge Apartments to meet another girl. But
See what I mean? Adrian so fast. I was like, what happened? So all 3 of them went to go meet a chick. And then while they was there, they saw her shiny. It's a Toyota 4Runner. It ain't no Subaru. It ain't no Volkswagen. It's a Toyota. But then how did carjacking become to kidnapping? I don't understand. Like you wanted the car. What it got to do with us? Why you got to take the car? Like just take the car.
saw Shannon's shiny forerunner.
See what I mean? Take the car. Why you kidnapping people? And what happened to the chick that y'all came to meet up with? I'm confused. Y'all all over the place. Because it's still gonna lead me back to trying to figure out why did Chris get assaulted? Why was Chris sexually assaulted? I'm so confused. It's so much going on right now.
couple standing outside together.
Minding their own damn business.
Nations all suddenly changed. According to Latalvis, he and Lamarcus had jumped the pair at gunpoint.
See what I mean?
Then surrounded Shannon and Chris, bound their hands behind their backs, and then forced them into the vehicle before then driving them to the house on Chipman Street.
Why we all at y'all house? At this dirty ass house with this pissy air mattress on the floor.
This is where their stories seem to fall apart.
Everybody got different versions of events now.
Because while some of them tried to separate themselves from the worst of it,
Right.
evidence would, of course, tell a very different story.
See what I
DNA
mean?
found at the crime scene would link both Latalvis and Lamarcus to Shannon.
Right.
Evidence showed that both Shannon and Chris were taken inside of the property that night. Chris was then taken to a bedroom, gagged, blindfolded, and had a dog chain and leash placed around his neck. He was sexually assaulted by multiple members of the group. The hours of that same morning, he was then led out of the house by that leash, placed into a vehicle, and driven to the railroad tracks. He was then ordered to walk barefoot towards the tracks, and when he was roughly 20 feet away, he was shot in the back and the neck. Realizing that he was still alive, his attackers then approached and shot him just above the ear, severing his brainstem in the process, and therefore ending his life. After that, his head was then wrapped in clothing and tied with shoelaces. His body was wrapped in a comforter, doused in gasoline, and then set on fire. And while Christopher was being murdered, Shannon was still inside that house on Chipman Street, in the middle of her own nightmare. It turns out that during that time, she wasn't alone because Vanessa was helping to keep Shannon captive. Vanessa later claimed that she wanted nothing to do with the crime and would even suggest that she herself had been held against her will. However, there were no signs on her body to support that, and actually, there was one other piece of evidence to contradict her entire statement.
Look.
That was Vanessa's very own
Did
diary. In January
her
later that day, she wrote, "Last night was one of a kind. We stayed with a crackhead that is as cool as hell. I've had one hell of an adventure since being in the Big TN. It's a crazy world these days, but I love the fun and adventures and lessons that I've learned. It's going to be a long, interesting year." I have to say, those don't sound like the words of someone who believed she was a hostage. And yeah, you were right, Vanessa. A long, interesting year was definitely ahead for you. Detectives believe that Shannon was tortured for 2 entire days, where she was repeatedly beaten, tied to a chair, and sexually assaulted by not only the men, but Vanessa too. The assault was so prolonged and violent that, by the end of it, she was covered in bruises, cuts, and lacerations. I can't actually share all of the details here because they are too graphic for YouTube guidelines. But towards the end, bleach was actually poured inside of her before her body was then doused in it. A bag was then placed over her head. She was stuffed inside a garbage bag and then placed inside the bin. And to make things even worse, all of this happened while Shannon was still alive and conscious, until eventually she passed away inside that bin. I have to say, those details push the boundaries of this case beyond anything that I've ever covered before. What these 5 monsters did to Shannon and Christopher was cruel, degrading, and utterly inhumane. And all of this was done towards 2 people who had never even wronged any of them. And I think that's why this case still makes people so furious. Because
just
Shannon and Chris-
2 random strangers minding their own business. It's that assaulting Chris that really just adds that fuel to the fire. Not taking anything away from Shannon, it's just, he was trying to do everything he can to protect her.
weren't merely killed, they were humiliated,
Right,
and literally treated like garbage.
right.
Hey Siri,
Like, that's gonna get rid of your DNA.
No surprise, but Lamarcus, Levoltus, and George were all hit with a mountain of charges, including rape, robbery, kidnapping, aggravated kidnapping, and premeditated murder. Vanessa faced dozens of charges that were connected to Shannon, including kidnapping, robbery, theft, rape-related charges, and murder. And Derek Boyd, who prosecutors believed had played a much larger role than he initially admitted, was first charged federally as an accessory to a carjacking for helping conceal a felony. But eventually, he too would face state charges for murder, rape, robbery, and kidnapping. The first person to stand trial was Eric, though at this point it wouldn't be for murder, but instead for his federal charges. In April of 2008, he was taken to a federal court and found guilty of being an accessory to a fatal carjacking and failing to report the location of a known fugitive. He was therefore sentenced to a total of 18 years in prison. Eric's biggest day in court would come much later. Now, let's focus on the others who had to face their own trials. In August of 2009, Alvis stood trial and was found guilty of first-degree murder of Shannon Christian and facilitating the murder of Christopher Newsom. Despite the possibility of the death penalty, he instead was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Lamarcus was next, who prosecutors believed was the actual ringleader and the one tied to the carjacking, the house on Chipman Street, and the most horrific parts of what happened inside it. To say that his trial was brutal is an understatement. The judge called his crimes one of the most outrageous, cruel, and inhumane cases that he has ever seen. And honestly, it's quite hard to argue with that. As a result, Lamarcus was found guilty and was even sentenced to death with an additional several years stacked on top. The next one to stand trial was George Thomas, who faced many of the same charges. And although he avoided the death penalty, he was sentenced to life without parole. And finally was Vanessa's turn. Her case was unfortunately more complicated, because prosecutors had to prove exactly what she did in this case. Not just what she saw or what she knew, but what she was actually responsible for. In the end, she was acquitted of first-degree murder, but instead was convicted on lesser charges connected to Shannon's kidnapping, assault, and death. And so, as a result, she was sentenced to 53 years. With that trial now finally over and all five convicted in some form, there was at least some kind of accountability. However, unfortunately, that justice would not actually last very long. It was in the year 2011 that the judge overseeing most of these trials, that being Richard Baumgartner, would actually resign from his role after being found buying drugs from several convicts.
That's worse than Blandville over here during the Young Thug trial.
In addition to the
It it's neck and neck. It's neck and neck.
there were also allegations of sexual misconduct and abuse of power.
Neck neck and neck. It's neck and neck.
Simply unbelievable from a judge.
Right.
He actually died several years ago, by the way, which is kind of unrelated, but I'd share it.
Sure.
Anyway, with the judge possibly being impaired during these trials, it meant that all of them would now have to face a retrial. Of course, bringing the nightmare back to the victims' families all over again. Thankfully, Lamarcus and Latulphus were denied any sort of new trial. However, both George and Vanessa were granted retrials. Although George was tried again, he was once again found guilty, but this time, his sentence was changed from life without parole to the possibility of only after 51 years. Vanessa's retrial was again more complicated, but in February of 2013, she was resentenced to 35 years in prison, with time already served counted towards that sentence. That means that between her first and second trial, she got 18 years less than originally received. Personally, I think that's bloody ridiculous. Let's not forget Eric, by the way, because although he had faced his federal charges, he had not yet faced any trial for murder. By 2019, he was back in court and, in the end, was found guilty on nearly all of his charges. This included murder, kidnapping, robbery, and rape connected to both Shannon and Chris. He was therefore sentenced to 2 life sentences, plus another 90 years on top of that. A big change from the 18-year sentence that he had previously received a few years prior. Imagine that, by the way, an entire decade behind bars, more than halfway through your original sentence,
And
just
you
to be told
bloop.
that it's now life times 2. Finally, in the year 2019, and after more than 12 years, the legal side of this story was about as closed as it was ever going to be. I think this has to be one of the most horrifying stories that I've ever covered, with one of the sloppiest legal endings to boot. And I genuinely feel both horrified and traumatized for Chris and Shannon, and I hope that both of their families are finding peace. As for the perpetrators, well, basically all of them are gone for good, minus Vanessa. She actually may be eligible for parole as early as 2036, which means she could be out in as little as 10 years from this video. Which I think is unfair because, to be honest with you, she deserves to be in there for life. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for watching today. I really do appreciate you being here. And as always, I'll see you again next week for another video. Before you go, though, what are your thoughts on this case? Because there are so many strange and sloppy parts to it. Do you think that the perpetrators received the sentences they deserved? And what do you think about Baumgartner? As always, whatever your opinions are, please share them in the comments down below. And thanks again to Southern New Hampshire University for sponsoring this with snh2.edu/coffeehousecrime to explore over 200 degree programs and find the path forward. Just a reminder that if you found this case interesting, please do consider subscribing as it does help the channel out. Anyway, with that said, folks, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you again next week for another video. Until that moment arrives, though, remember to look after yourselves and, of course, each other. Thank you, and goodbye.
I need to take a minute to debrief. Shannon and Christopher. Child, it was just minding their business. Get in the car and drive away. Why y'all sitting all outside with all that hugging and cuddling and kissing and talking and stuff? Just get in and drive. They should have just got in the car and just drove away. None of this would never happen. At least we got the monsters off the street. It's that assaulting Christopher for me. We don't really be on it, that male on male assault. Got my head throbbing. Let me get some water. And then Shannon in there. Oh, I gotta relax my forehead. It's throbbing. That was a tough one to get through. I don't know why they just didn't get in the car and drive away. I think head was hurt. Was that even their house? Well, remember they said that they was at the homegirl house, the best friend house or something like that, and it was waiting for Christopher to get there. And then who- I'm trying to figure out who did they come to see. That's what got me blowed. Who did they come to see? Remember that he said that they had came just my head is throbbing right now. I have to relax a little bit. It's just it won't relax. I'm trying to just relax it a little bit. And that was tough to get through. I told you could be a little racist with that true crime. It hit different. It just hit different. I don't know. It just hit different. It would just be minding their own little business and I don't know why they just didn't get in the car. Let me relax, cause my forehead is I got a big forehead. It's just trying to relax it. Relax it a little bit before we swing over there to Giles. His is the tough ones. His is the tough one. Let me see. I'm try- Let me just see. Because there's a lot going on over here. I'm trying not to find somebody that's not 57 minutes. I'm trying to figure out what is the theme for this year. You got these numbers. Mary Morris. Oh, that's unsolved. Somali Powers. I don't know nothing about these people. Oh, if you want to be nosy, I'm scrolling. I gotta read the title. Dakota Collins. Adrian Jones. I'm trying to see. I'm trying to see if I can handle some more true crime. Kelly Lane. Who was Kelly Lane? Let me see what's Kelly Lane talking about. That's one of them stories that's gonna haunt me. That's why I can only just do true crime one day a week. I just devoted it to Sundays. Cause Adrian, I think he drops on Mondays. Or he may have bumped his off to like Tuesdays. I know Mike drop his Tuesdays and Fridays. Everybody just be dropping them like different times, different days. Like I can only just true crime one day out the week. And so Kevin didn't drop today. He gave us a break. He probably gonna drop Thursday though. You know how he do. Okay. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The season 24. Okay. I think this was the end. Oh wait, hold on. Oh Lord, I forgot. This was the Let me just
In 1989, 24-year-old Kelly Lane gave birth to a little boy and began the process of putting him up for adoption. She told the social worker that the baby was her first and that she was an athlete trying to go to the Olympics, which didn't give her the ability to care for a child. She also said that her boyfriend was the father and he was living in London, not wanting any part of the baby's life. This seemed like a pretty straightforward case until the social worker did a bit of digging and realized that nothing that Kelly had told her was the truth.
okay, what happened?
This monsters.
Hey, I don't know now. I don't know about that song. Um, I don't know. I don't know. About with these copyrighted intros. Go. What, Kelly?
Kelly Lane was born on March 21st, 1975, to Robert and Sandra Lane. She has an older brother named Morgan. She grew up in the North Sydney suburb of Manly, which has beaches on both sides. The South Pacific Ocean to the east and an inlet called North Harbor to the west. She attended McKellar's Girls' School, where she would go on to become a star water polo player. Her father was a local police officer, and her parents were known to have very high expectations of their two children.
Clearly.
Kelly began dating Aaron Tyak, and in November of 1992, when she was 17 years old, she became pregnant for the first time. Kelly and Aaron talked and agreed to an abortion, which Aaron would later say in an interview was traumatic for Kelly.
Sure.
Not traumatic enough, it seems, and Kelly became pregnant again in November of 1993. She was still dating Aaron, but it's never been clear whether or not he was the father.
Oh.
She had another abortion, saying it was traumatic and that she wanted to avoid it happening again. So she started using birth control, and this story is over.
Right.
Of course not.
Right. Come on.
She was pregnant for a third time in June of 1994. She was dating a rugby player named Duncan Gillies, but a paternity test would later reveal that the baby's father was a different rugby player named Paul Roberts. It sounds like Kelly and Paul had a brief relationship between Aaron and Duncan. Kelly was able to hide her pregnancy, and this is where her life would become buried in lies. Kelly played in a water polo game while pregnant, and after losing the game, the players went out to a pub to hang out. I couldn't find any information about Kelly drinking. She might have just been visiting with her teammates. After a while, her teammates noticed that she had left, and it turned out that she had gone into labor at the pub and took herself to the hospital. Kelly gave birth
Was that far along? Playing water polo tournament?
to her daughter on March 19th, 1995. She named her Trisha, but she didn't intend to keep her. Kelly told the hospital that she was from Perth and that she had been in Sydney for 3 weeks. Obviously lies. She explained that she was a water polo player and her goal was to compete in the Olympics, which were planned to be held in Sydney in 2000. She said she wasn't a parent at the time. Then she gave them a fake address, fake phone number, and the name of a fake obstetrician in Perth. After surrendering Trisha to the hospital to be put up for adoption, Kelly was discharged on March 23rd. Kelly's 20th birthday happened while she was still in the hospital with Trisha. When questioned about how nobody noticed that Kelly was MIA on her birthday, it turned out that Kelly had temporarily checked out of the hospital, went and celebrated her birthday with friends, and then returned to the hospital. That was the level of deception that Kelly was at.
Look, there's no word that popped into my head other than, man, this deception is going deep. Ooh, let me check out of the hospital, go, and then I'm gonna come back.
Kelly was referred to Senecare Adoption Agency, and she started out participating in the adoption process, though nothing she told the caseworker was true. She said that she had moved to Perth when she was 13. Her parents still lived in Perth. She had been enrolled at the University of Perth. Her parents were aware of the pregnancy, and though not happy, they were supportive. Father, and he was also aware of the pregnancy. He had even come to the hospital to visit her and Trisha. None of those things were true. She also claimed that Duncan would be willing to come in and sign adoption paperwork, but he was in the UK at the time and wouldn't be back for 2 weeks. Another lie. When Kelly returned to meet with the social worker more than 2 weeks later, she claimed that Duncan had extended his trip to play rugby in Scotland, which was not true. She then signed a sworn statement about Duncan that read, quote, "He has indicated to me his willingness to sign a consent. At the present time, he is working in the United Kingdom and has plans to return within the next 14 days. Duncan was not the father and he had no idea Kelly had been pregnant. Kelly was trying hard to keep the birth adoption of her daughter a secret, but she underestimated how much valid information the adoption agency would want. When they tried to call her, the number didn't work, so the social worker sent a letter to the address asking Kelly to contact them. Well, the address didn't exist, so Kelly never got it and she never contacted them. After waiting more than a week to hear from Kelly, the social worker sent a registered letter to Duncan, which meant it would be held for him at the post office. 2 days later, Kelly showed up at the adoption agency and told the social worker that she and Duncan had separated, and she signed another sworn statement that said that Duncan had changed his mind and didn't want any involvement with Trisha. While at the adoption agency, she learned about the registered letter that had been sent to Duncan, and after she left, she swung by the post office and picked it up. A few days later, Kelly told the social worker that Duncan was aware that they had been trying to get in contact with him, but he didn't want to be involved and he wanted them to stop harassing him.
Did the post office let her pick up that letter? Just ask me.
Several events throughout her pregnancy. Her teammates said that she would stay obscured until she got into the water, and from above, you couldn't tell she was pregnant. In later interviews, though, many of them said that when they went under the water, they could clearly see she was pregnant, but they never said anything. She competed in multiple tournaments up to and after the birth of Trisha. The adoption was finalized in June of 1995, and in July, Kelly traveled to Canada where she competed in an under 20s water polo tournament. She returned to Sydney on July 14th, but didn't have any more contact with the adoption agency. The process of trying to secretly adopt out a baby seemed to be much more difficult than Kelly had expected. That might have been the catalyst for how she would handle the birth of her next child. That pregnancy was realized in December of 1995 while she was still working on getting Trisha adopted. She hadn't even gotten her previous baby adopted before getting pregnant again.
Right.
Someone would be crazy for thinking Kelly was extremely irresponsible when it came to birth control.
Not even that. Every damn year. I don't understand.
Would be the men she was having sexual relationships with. It's confusing because she said she didn't, quote, want this to happen again. And it's easy to assume she meant getting pregnant, but it seems that she meant having an abortion.
Right.
Despite having a difficult time with the adoption process and mainly keeping it a secret, she did not have another abortion. Though she may have been too far along by the time she realized how difficult the adoption process was. A psychiatrist would later testify that he believed that Kelly wanted to be pregnant to replace the babies from the earlier termination.
Mm.
That doctor had never interviewed Kelly and was just basing his opinion on reports. Kelly would say in an interview that she had been on the pill, but she was not in a place where she cared about her own safety, so she was drinking a lot, not taking the pill properly, and not asking her partners to use protection. There's
Mm.
some other theories that kind of go out into left field, but her motive for why she continued to get pregnant while not wanting a baby is still hazy. When Kelly learned that she was pregnant again, she kept it secret just like she had with the last two. In January, she began studying to become a PE teacher at the Australian College of Physical Education. She withdrew from college in August and secured a job coaching water polo at Ravenswood School for Girls. That position wasn't scheduled to start until October 9th, and while Duncan was out of the country on September 7th, Kelly went to Ryde Hospital and tried to have her labor induced. She had never been to that hospital before, and obviously the hospital staff had questions. Kelly was only 38 weeks pregnant, and labor is usually induced if the baby is significantly late or there's a medical emergency. There, Kelly gave a fake address, and it seems that she wanted to induce labor so she would have the baby while Duncan was out of town. The staff determined she was at 38 weeks and not experiencing an emergency, so the induction was denied.
Mm.
Duncan returned on the 9th. On September 10th, Kelly returned to Ryde Hospital and claimed she was 2 days overdue. She must have seen different nurses, and she told them she was planning to have a home birth and gave them the name of Duncan's mother as her midwife. Of course, Duncan's mother didn't even know she was pregnant. The nurses determined that Kelly wasn't in need of induction and sent her away again. The following day, she went back to Ryde Hospital and again asked to be induced, and the hospital said no again. So Kelly drove to Auburn Hospital, about 40 minutes away from Manly, where she claimed she was 12 days overdue. She gave the staff a fake address, the name of a friend as her emergency contact, though provided a fake number. She used Duncan's mother's name as the name of her prenatal doctor, and she claimed that she had had a miscarriage in Perth in 1994. She was instructed to return the following day for an assessment, and after that was done, to induce labor. Tegan Lane was born on September 12, 1996, and after she was born, the staff determined that she was 2 weeks premature.
Bingo.
Despite that, the baby was healthy. The following day, a social worker met with Kelly since she had been alone the entire time she was in labor. The hospital was concerned about releasing her with no support system, and so Kelly opened her mouth and more lies continued to spill out. She claimed her boyfriend, the baby's father, was about to return from a trip to the UK and he was supposed to be there for the birth, but she didn't go into labor when she expected to. On the 14th, Kelly checked herself out of the hospital before the doctors were done with her and Tegan's care. She slipped out of the hospital sometime between 11 a.m. and noon with Tegan, and hospital staff would be the last people to ever see the baby. Kelly was house alone at 3 p.m. She immediately cleaned up and changed, and when Duncan arrived at 4 p.m., Kelly's mother Sandra drove them to attend a wedding. Video taken at the wedding showed Kelly socializing, drinking, and dancing. She didn't seem to have a care in the world. Over the next few years, Kelly succeeded in not getting pregnant, at least as far as anybody knows. She continued coaching water polo, and when rumors started swirling that water polo might be added to the 2000 Olympics, Kelly was excited, but her dreams were crushed when she was dropped from the New South Wales team.
Uh-oh.
She then started training to try to get a spot on the national team.
Hey, Meta. They're gorgeous.
The hell happened to Tegan? Who was that driving on that bicycle? What happened to Tegan?
Kelly and Duncan had broken up in 1998, and she ended up getting pregnant by a friend of her brother's named Alan Howard. She would keep the pregnancy a secret, but eventually a DNA test would reveal Alan as the father. Maybe Kelly thought she didn't have it in her to go through the adoption process or to make another baby disappear, but in February of 1999, she went to an abortion clinic in Brisbane and tried to get a late-term abortion. Despite her lies, the staff determined the fetus to be too far along and she was denied. Only done in emergency situations and make up about 1% of abortions in many countries, including Australia, the US, and the UK. Kelly ended up carrying the baby to term, and her third and final secret baby was born on May 31st, 1999.
I told you every year.
Archie.
Uh
The
oh.
following day, Kelly contacted the adoption
Again.
she didn't put Archie up for adoption. She told them she had been living in London, but she flew back to Sydney to have the baby for some reason. She told the social worker that Duncan was the father and that he was living in London.
She's obsessed with Duncan.
Again, the adoption agency said they needed the father's consent in order to complete the adoption process, so Kelly came up with more lies, eventually avoiding the situation completely. The social worker got the Department of Community Services
Oh.
or DOCS involved, and they started investigating. They found that Kelly had been at Ryde Hospital in 1996 in the late stages of pregnancy, but she had told the social worker Archie was her first child. Eventually, the social worker sent a letter to Duncan at the Manly Rugby Club, and the staff there.
Speaking of, what time is it? I'm gonna try to get back. I hear him. I gotta go get him. Cover that up now. Don't come up here with all that business out. I got it. I'm in the middle of a story. Uh-oh.
Duncan read the letter he confronted Kelly, but she claimed there was no baby. Those who admitted there was a baby, but he wasn't supposed to know about it. Oh, okay. I wasn't supposed to know about a baby. That clears things up. Obviously, the social worker learned that Duncan was not the father, so Kelly told her a man named Aaron Williams was the father. That was a name she just made up. You can't track down someone if they don't exist, am I right? Actually, you'd be wrong. Kelly told the social worker that Mr. Williams worked at the Barclays Bank in London, and when she called to verify, she was told that there was Aaron Williams who worked for the company. When Archie's father could not be located, Kelly signed a sworn statement about who the father was and that he did not want to be involved with his child. Though it seemed that the adoption was moving forward, the doc's investigator was not satisfied with the information he had found. He contacted Kelly and asked her if she had given birth to a baby at Auburn Hospital in 1996, and she said no. That's when the investigator told Kelly that he would be referring the matter to the police.
Ooh.
It was that point that Kelly admitted to having 3 babies for the first time. She wrote a letter to the social worker that included a bunch of claims that her family had disowned her, though they hadn't, and she stated that Tegan lived with a family in Perth, but she had never visited her. In June of 2000, the adoption of Archie was finalized, but the doc's investigator had already submitted his findings to the Manly police. Detective Senior Constable Matthew Kehoe was assigned to the case. When Kelly was interviewed in February of 2001, she claimed that she had given Tegan to her father, who she was then claiming was a man named Andrew Morris. She said Andrew had picked her up at the hospital, gave her a ride home, and kept Tegan with him. She made it seem like there was some sort of arrangement between herself and Andrew, but wouldn't that have included some sort of communication? Wouldn't she have called Andrew from the hospital to know when to pick her up? That detail would come up later after the trial. There were 3.5 hours between when Tegan was last seen and when Kelly showed up at her parents' house. It was a 40-minute drive. What happened the rest of the time? She arranged the transfer of an infant with zero evidence that it happened. And then what about records? Tegan's birth was never submitted to records. The Medicaid system, which covers child health care, had no record of reimbursing anybody for Tegan's care. Even up until the time of Kelly's trial, there was no record of Tegan having been enrolled in school. The detective asked if she could provide the last address she had for Andrew, and Kelly said she didn't know where he lived. In a later interview, she claimed that Andrew's house was a 2-minute walk from the pub where she had met him. How hard would it have been to find the address? The investigation didn't seem to be at the top of the priority list for the police because Kelly would not be interviewed again until the following. She told Detective Richard Gott that she gave Tegan to her father, Andrew Norris. When Gott asked why she had told Detective Kehoe his name was Andrew Norris, she said she hadn't and insisted she said his name was Andrew Norris. So Tegan's father went from Duncan Gillies to Aaron Williams to Andrew Morris. Then she told a different account of what had happened after she left the hospital.
Crazy.
Then when she had a friend named Elisa who knew about Andrew, but when the detective asked for her contact info, Kelly claimed she didn't have it. Of course, Detective Gott was able to track Lisa down, and she denied ever knowing an Andrew Norris, or an Andrew Morris for that matter. After that, Kelly would begin dodging the detective. When he interviewed her again 7 months later in May of 2003, he asked her about the letter she had written to the social worker, claiming Tegan was living with her. Kelly gave us a vague story about believing Andrew wasn't going to stay in Sydney and alluding to him having family in Perth, but it wasn't really an answer. In 2004, a coroner's inquest was held regarding the disappearance of Tegan Lane. Kelly was offered an immunity deal that would give her immunity from prosecution for any crime besides murder if she came clean about where Tegan was. She turned the deal down, which she said was because she was already telling the truth. But most people believe it's because coming clean would be to admit that she murdered the baby, and the immunity didn't include that. Another coroner's inquest was held in 2005 where a plea was put out asking for anyone who knew a childless couple who suddenly had a baby, but there was no response. The coroner determined that Kelly's story of handing the baby over to Andrew Norris was not a evasive myth and a litany of lies. He said he would, quote, completely unable to accept the final version given by her. For the next few years, an extensive search for Andrew Norris or Morris continues that day.
Yep.
41 men named Andrew Norris or Morris were located and interviewed. Birth records, adoption records, school records, medical records, police records, immigration records, missing.
I'll finish. It's fine. I don't want to hold you up or anything like that. Um, since you're having a hard time getting some rest and stuff. So we can just say goodbye. Are you gonna say bye-bye? Yeah. Uh-huh. You can say bye-bye. You found your voice? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? What you doing? You have to say bye, because we have to go. I can finish watching Giles. Yeah, I only have a few minutes left. I don't want to keep you waiting, because I already got to clean up. You want to say bye-bye? Yes? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? You don't feel like talking? You need some water? I have some. I don't have a cup. I have a top. She always come with a little top. You want some water? Just it's a top full, cap full. So bye-bye. See you guys next time. You have to say it correctly. In the meantime, in between time. Okay, love you. Bye. Mwah.